The author of Madoc. I did teach him Moira.
Moira Memories. Gordon is my girl. Anyway, first of all, I would like to thank Tammy, our librarian, and Terry, and our custodian, for setting up the room and getting everything ready. And so I won't take long, but I'll tell you a little bit about Gordon. I could tell you a lot. He's 8 years younger than I am, so I could certainly tell you a lot. Gordon has had a long and successful career in journalism. He, for many years, was a business writer with the Globe and Mail. And in that time, he wrote 7 or 8 books.
7, I guess. Yeah.
I've lost track. You're on your 8th?
I think 9.
Okay. So it's always been his dream to do a book, to write a book about Moira Lake. And because our family, our great-grandparents, settled here 140 years ago, and because our father was a great storyteller, I wish I'd listened to more, he said, but kids don't. Because of that, we knew many stories about the lake, little tidbits here and there. But after Gordon retired, he decided to follow his dream and find out more about those tidbits. And so he has assembled the oral history from many, many people around the lake, people who are here now, people who were here many years ago, a lot of Americans who used to come here. And he'll tell you more about that probably than I. He'll tell you what really prompted him to begin writing. So he's done well. He's actually, was it about 2 years ago you started?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody, I don't think Diane's here, but Diane said to me, I can't believe he got it. She phoned, she found some pictures, and I said the book was done, and she said, I can't believe he got it done in that time frame. I think he had another book that was paying him something, looming in the background, so he did it well. Anyway, it has been also fun for Grant and for me. Grant coordinated the photos, and he tells me he scanned in over 248 pictures. And that was fun. And my sister-in-law, Elaine, because, hey, this book wouldn't have been written without her. Stand up, Elaine. She did a large part of the editing. I did some as well. Thank you also to the Moira Lake Property Owners Association, because they provided the financing for the project. And some of them are here today, I see, so that's much appreciated. It's been a great experience to get feedback, and I know it's been very rewarding for Gordon. Every once in a while, Harry Court will send us an email that came to him when people were picking up books there, or Gordon gets an email, or we get an email from someone who the lake has meant a great deal to, and they really are happy to see it down on paper. I always thought it was my lake, our lake, but now I realize how much it meant to so many people. So anyway, just to show what it has meant, I'm going to read an email that, well, emails that have been sent back and forth to Harry from Tim Batcha. Where's Harry? And Tim lives in Aliquippa?
Ohio, somewhere.
He lives in Ohio. Oh, sorry, there it says Ohio. I noticed somebody said Aliquippa Library should have one, but he wasn't the one. Anyway, my name is Tim Batcha. I was in touch with Mr. Pitts about the recent book he just wrote about the history of Moira Lake. He just emailed me informing me the book is now for sale for $30 to non-association members, and you should be the one to contact. Here is my dilemma. I live in Ohio. Harry says, in his usual kind way, it is nice to hear from someone who's been enjoying Moira Lake for so many years and from such a distance away. Wow, I can't believe it, but yours will be our first international sale. And then another one. Hello, Tim, just to let you know, I mailed the 2 books to you just now. Bonus, yesterday Gordon Pitts was here and I got him to sign both of your books. Check out the very first page on the right when you open the cover. One is addressed directly to you. And then Tim writes back, and this I think we should all be proud of as a community. Thank you so much. I sent a check and also placed a piece of paper in there with my return address. Thank you again. This means a lot to me, as I'm sure when they're giving us gifts in the future, they will be loved just as much as we love Madoc and Moira Lake. Can't wait until I come to visit again for my fishing trip. The town has changed so much since I was little, in the past years, from playing catch on the Bald Diamond with Dad, to there being a beautiful skate park, to the Hidden Gold Mine Bakery expanding, having some cold beers at Two Loons, to now the Barley Pub in town. And just the friendly faces from the past to the faces of the future. I know some might find it hard to believe that someone from out of town, let alone another country, because something can mean so much to someone. I'm babbling, but thank you again. Then he ends with, I just got home from work and they were in the mailbox today. I haven't started reading yet, but I'm hoping to start tonight. Thank you again for all you did. The autographs were great, and the time to help someone so far away really means a lot, and reminds me of why I love Madoc and the surrounding areas, and also says a lot about the people that live there. Thank you again, Tim Batches. So that's what the book did, and it's made us realize what a wonderful community we have. Anyway, with that, I probably got on too much. I'm going to introduce my dear brother.
Oh, thank you, Gail. Once again, as in life, I come after Gail, and a long time after Gail. I'm just going to take about 10 or 15 minutes, just very quickly. The book started, as Gail said, about 60 years ago, listening to our father and our mother and our grandmother. Dad always told me there were shots fired. There was a very respected native man who lived down Darby Point Lane. There was Alec Francis, a hero of our family, who was a great, we have baskets still. He was a tremendous basket maker. All these stories came down to me, but there are two things really that prompted this book. Gail and Grant and Elaine and I sitting around talking, and I said, you know, we got to capture these stories. We got to capture these tales. Nobody else is going to do it. I kept hearing people say, oh, you know, so-and-so, you should have been around 15 years ago to hear so-and-so. And I'm thinking, no, got to be around today to hear me. I'm the repository now of the stories, and people my age, Terry Pigden and people like that, are the repository of the stories. We have to get our stories. The stories have been told to us. Second thing is the economic importance. I think people underestimate the importance, not just in our social society, but our economic fabric. The lake, just think of all the ways the lake contributes to this village and community, through not just through taxes, but through retail sales, through recently renovation and new house construction. You know, you get, as an engine of the economy, it's a tremendous thing to document through the years. And finally, there's the issue, not finally, but there's the issue of capturing people's memories. Bill Naylor, who I understand had tremendous stories about the lake. Bill and I agreed to meet about 2 years ago. Bill is a local guy who had fished on the lake for decades. And Bill, I phoned up Bill and I said, Bill, I'll meet you wherever you want. He said, you know, I got to go to Kingston. I got a medical problem. And I would phone him up afterwards. He says, you know, I'm not feeling that good. And then Bill passed away before I was able to talk to him. And I sort of said, you know, really got to go out and do this book. And thankfully, Bill told people stories, so there are other repositories of information out there. Just this month, past month, two people who played such a big role in the book, Herb Mitchell and Ellen MacDonald, both died. They're both part of the great Mitchell-MacDonald story on the lake, which is in the book, which you should read. And of course, the library. I don't know how much you hold the library in esteem, but it's really a repository of great knowledge. And in this case, it was the archives and the tremendous gift of the Madoc Review over the decades, and the Madoc Mercury, where I am now legally blind because of reading it, but you know, it's but still, it made this book. And thank you for Tammy. Thank you. Also, Wendy Stevens is an incredible resource for the community, so she should be thanked. Posthumously, I want to thank Bill McBain. 10 or 15 years ago, a guy named Bill McBain, who lived down at the lake, sat down with me for about an hour, and we taped an interview, and I couldn't find the interview. And I hunted, and I finally found it in the house, and I couldn't record it because it was on this special, you know, double speed thing, and so I had to buy through Kijiji special tape recorder in Ottawa and bring it back, and I got Bill's words on tape, and that was a tremendous thing. The Watsons, the Ruperts, David Mullet, all these people played a huge role. And Steve Campbell, who printed the book. If you ever want a history book done, Steve of County Magazine in Bloomfield is a tremendous person to know. And my brother-in-law, Grant, whose role in this is just huge, not just in collecting pictures, but choosing them, getting the captions, really being this logistical job of dealing with photos. And just one more thing, we're going to do a little reading from the book, but I just want to say one more thing. This morning, I met early before this meeting with David Maltby. David lives at the lake, and he lives in a very historic site, the site of the great Baron, the Silver Fox Baron, and he's taken some of the remnants of those old fox, he ran a fox farm there, the Baron did, some of the remnants of those pens, and he's renovated, created a shed, a storage shed for himself, but he's built onto the house, but he's kept some of the documents involving that story. And so Dave and I are going to talk, and probably there's more to do. I only mention this is that it's not the stories in the book, it's the stories you haven't told me yet that I'm really looking forward at this point. So I'm hoping that the book is a dialogue, is a source of conversation, to pull out these stories and get them documented. I've got 20, 30 hours of tape recordings of people who have contributed this book. I just want to keep adding to that resource, and there may be another book, there may be a website, there may be a blog. There are just so many things that you can do now to help me go into the next chapter of this whole experience. So we will do, I'll take a couple of questions. I think most of the questions are going to be just milling around and talking. So I'm not going to take a big question period, but I am going to read just a couple of things from the book, 2 or 3 things. I think we're okay. Do we have about 5 minutes more before people nod off? I didn't know where to start with this book, but really a lot of the really exciting history was around 3 Native people who lived on the lake around the turn of the 20th century. One of them I call the mentor, Henry Mitchell. And Henry Mitchell was the dominant figure on Moira Lake, and to some extent in Madoc, for the first 4 decades of the 20th century. And the book starts off, or the period on this section on Henry Mitchell, starts off with this few paragraphs. The man's name was Robert Garrett, and he had gone missing near the lake. The village of Madoc feared the worst. In May of 1920, the entire community mobilized in search of the missing man, many using their newly acquired telephones for the purpose. It was only natural that Henry Mitchell would join the effort. He was an expert guide, a man wise in the way of both nature and humans. Mitchell, a native man who lived on the north shore of the lower lake, grasped the sad facts about Garrett. The man was truly a lost soul, devastated by the death of his wife from a mysterious illness killing people by the thousands in the aftermath of the First World War. A clerk at Toronto's Eaton's department store, Garrett had 4 young daughters to raise alone. Distraught, he left Toronto to come down to Madoc to be by himself, and he dropped out of sight. Now, Henry Mitchell, a native man, an agile 65-year-old, joined the searchers and looked for clues to the man's fate. Then a group of local Boy Scouts brought evidence of where Garrett had wandered, and the guide listened. He respected the observations of young people. After all, he was their teacher. Within hours, Mitchell had tracked down the lifeless body of Robert Garrett, who had drowned himself. It was typical of Henry Mitchell to seem to be everywhere and know everything. A man of great compassion, he was not able to save the life of Robert Garrett, but he at least could bring closure to the tragedy. From tales like this, it's sometimes hard to believe that Henry Mitchell was an ordinary human, what with powers he was said to possess. According to his admirers, and there were many, this gentle Aboriginal man could predict the weather with surefire accuracy, could cure warts with the application of native healing, and he saved people when their boats capsized on Moira's fickle waters, or when they fell through the thin ice of a mild winter. And he could be a detective, tracking down missing people. Mitchell's greatest feats were not supernatural, they were uncommonly human. For about 50 years, he was mentor to hundreds of young boys and girls who learned the way of the woods and the lake from this native guide. And he would listen to youth when others would not. So that's briefly the bit on Henry Mitchell. Yes, Grant?
Excuse me, you mentioned natives on the lake.
Yes, I'm about to do the Alec Francis.
Francis?
Yes.
I'd like everyone to meet Alec Francis' great-granddaughter, Dawn.
Yeah. That was the next sequence that I went to point out, Don. I have a section called The Maker about Alec Francis. And if you lived on our part of the lake, Alec Francis was a dominant figure down there. Everybody knew him. He wasn't dominant because he was a huge boisterous personality. He was a leader. He was a quiet leader. And Alec Francis was an Akwesasne Mohawk, born in 1877. On the U.S. side of the St. Lawrence River, just across from Cornwall. His Mohawk name was translated as a hanging leaf, but he was known to his friends as Alec, in some cases Alex. In 1908, Alec was a 30-year-old widower, perhaps looking for a new beginning when he heard about a place called Hog Lake, as Moira was then known. It is possible he had come to know native people such as the Allard family and Henry Mitchell, who resided in the area. And for whatever reason, he left Akwesasne and moved to Madoc. Family history says Alec was rowing his boat up the lake when he passed near the home of the Allard family along the north side. He chanced to see the family's young daughter named Susanna and was immediately captivated. And on January 24th, 1909, Alec married Susanna, right? Susanna or Susie Allard, who is the, those two are the ancestors. Great grandparents?
My great-grandmother.
Your great-grandparents of this lady. Oh, I haven't met until then. Nice to see you. Alec and Susie moved down the lake to a little 2-room house with a steep stairway leading to an attic. There was no electricity or modern amenities. The little house sat on a rise of land overlooking the lake. It was there that Alec would live for more than 50 years and become the legendary maker of many beautiful things, including incredible baskets, including big bows for bows and arrows, including cradles. The women of Madoc would go out shopping, market on a Saturday morning using Alec Francis's baskets. I might close it at about there. I think 25 minutes is probably, 25 minutes is probably close enough. I just want to also allude to one more Native person and a Native woman named, she had a nickname, nobody seemed to remember her name. She was a very strong person. She was called Queen Dido. Queen Dido was a heroic woman, Queen of Carthage in ancient Rome. And anyway, Queen Dido was an expert trapper, hunter, and she was in the southwest corner of the lower lake. And if anybody knows her stories, that's one of the great mysteries that we have yet to unravel. So what I'm trying to tell you is the history is yet to come. This is not the history of the lake. This is just chapter 1. Could I take, I'm going to end it there, but I'm going to ask, does anyone just want to say quickly a couple of questions, and then we'll just chat. I think that's the best way to operate this. So are there any questions right now about anything? Perhaps anything that I've talked about is here. And not only a tremendous contributor to this book and the story of her father, and not only a wonderful person in terms of a teacher at Madoc Public School, but my teacher, my grade 3 teacher, and a wonderful teacher. And so anyway, she's one of the many people who've contributed to this book. So, Iwina, thank you very much. And, yes.
I'm looking forward to book number 2.
Okay.
We all are.
Start to work now. I'm not going to promise it in a year, like, or even within 2, but I think it's possible there's more. Yes, Joe.
Gordon, I think it's worth mentioning we have a lot of wonderful volunteers in the community in here. And speaking of wonderful volunteers, I think your grand salary on this was just below 1 penny.
Well, the bill is going to come, though.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Send this to my wife, please.
Well, you know, you take a lot from a community and a lake, and you want to give something back. And, you know, I could have volunteered in all kinds of. This is something I can do. So I think we should always look for the things that we can do to contribute.
And we thank you for it.
Thank you very much. A labor of love. Yeah,
Gord,
Harry.
there's a chap who came around with his young family just last weekend and picked up a book at our dock, which was kind of cool in itself. But his name is Michael Steele, and he tells me that he has photos, some of which he's already shared with myself and Grant. But he has photos, he's got old maps and all of these sorts of things, and he wants to, I don't know if he made it here today or if he was not able to, but he wants desperately to meet with us, and maybe what we can do is bring him to one of our board meetings and invite you to that as well, and maybe go through some of that stuff and just see what, because he's totally engaged in sharing whatever it is that he has.
I'd like to do that. And I keep saying this is the book that gets people talking. It's a conversation piece, and so please use it as a spur to look in your attics and look in your old files, because there have to be something there that you can share, and we can document. The library is a great place, of course, as a really respected, safe, and trustworthy place to keep your family reminiscences. Grant?
I can't give a motion, everybody that knows me knows that, but I was just going to mention that this gentleman, now I believe Frank Forrestal, generally, he tells me that the basket that Alec Francis made, that was his bassinet. So he knows how good your great-grandpa was at making baskets.
Well, my older daughter, Martha, I mean, in her early days, we kept her in. She slept in Alec Francis' cradle, a bassinet. So we've all been touched in some way by, I think, Alec, and I'm sure there's a lot of houses, a lot of homes around there saying, you know, we've had this basket for 100 years, and we have no idea where it came from. You know, if they looked into it, it would be Alec Francis. Yes. And you know, the people around here, the right at the back is John Boyd. John, right? And John was another big contributor to the book, because there's a section here on historic cottages, and the John's cottage, which was a nickel cottage at one time, which was his wife, was Ann Nickel. The oldest cottage, we believe, on the upper lake. The oldest cottage on the lower lake is a arm wrestling, I think, between 3 or 4 of us, including my sister and I, over which is the little of the Nid or the Tulatup is the oldest. It's really great that these cottages are continuing and that new cottages and new homes are coming up, beautiful new homes. It's the evolution, it's the organic evolution of things. So John, thanks for coming. And any other comments anyone wants to make to the larger group? Rob?
Just wondering, did anybody ever live on a boat on the lake?
Anyone live?
On a boat on the lake?
Good question. Does anyone know? There is a boat on page 96. Take a look on page 96. So that, we think somebody spent a lot of time on that. And you notice how safety conscious that boat is. And look at all the, yeah. It isn't the classic houseboat you find in Key Biscayne, but it is a, we think possibly people spent a lot of time on that boat sleeping, and Rupert's possibly. Is Jane here today? No, Jane, I should say. Jane here today? Anyway, you know, at this point, I want to say one more thing is there are still books for sale in case you're sort of worried. And you know how much of I'm getting from them. But they're also available through Harry Court. And Harry has done a wonderful job on coordinating the sales of this. And if you want to talk to Harry, he's made them available. They're at the Hidden Gold Mine. We try to keep them in good supply. And I am going to, at that point, call this meeting to a close and thank you for coming. And but we're going to mill around. You know, it's not over yet, and I'm autographing anything you want. So